Drums echoed. Young ladies danced in one after another, shaking their waists before the prince. But his face stayed blank until Uwauma stepped out. Poor, an orphan, no beauty, no skill. Nobody clapped. Some even laughed. But just as the drums began, a cold breeze blew, and suddenly she saw her dead mother's spirit. She appeared. "My daughter, follow my steps." She didn't know how to dance. She just followed her mother's dancing step gradually as the drums continued. And what happened next shook the whole village. Her waist moved like magic. Her feet obeyed a rhythm no one else could hear. Even the prince was shocked and surprised. He sat up staring like he was under a spell. "Who is she?" he whispered. But just when Uwauma was about to win the prince's heart, she fainted. This wasn't normal. It was all manipulated by her uncle. The same man who killed her parents and made her an orphan now came in again to destroy the favor she was about to get from the prince. This is not just a story. It will be a warning and life lesson to everyone watching this. In a village nestled among green hills and tall palm trees, there lived a young lady named Uwauma. She was known across the land not just because of her face, but because of the way she carried herself. Her beauty was full, raw, real, the kind that turned heads and started whispers. Her dark skin shone like wet charcoal under the Sunday. Her hips moved with quiet pride, and every time she walked, her waist swelled gently from side to side, like water dancing in a clay pot. Men looked, women watched. Her presence didn't beg for attention, it commanded it. Villagers would often say, "That one, even her shadow is beautiful." But behind all the admiration, Uwauma lived a quiet life. She was the only child of her parents. Her father was a palm wine tapper. Her mother was a village trader. They lived in a modest mud house, ate together, laughed sometimes. They were not rich, but they had each other. Until one morning, everything changed. Her father went to the bush like he always did, rope in hand, knife in pouch, his gourd swinging beside him. But that day, he didn't return. He had climbed a tall palm tree to tap the early wine, but his grip slipped. The rope snapped. He fell from the top, hit the ground hard. He died instantly. The villagers brought his body back, wrapped in faded cloth. His head hung to the side, his limbs limp. Uwauma stood there, silent, her hands folded, her breath shallow. The world around her felt strange. She didn't cry, but her mother broke. She held his cold body in her arms. She called his name again and again. When the body was taken away for burial, she collapsed in their compound, hands shaking, lips trembling. She refused food. She stopped speaking. Her face became blank, like someone already halfway into the spirit world. 3 days later, she died. Just like that. No sickness, no injury, no warning, just heartbreak. And so it happened in less than 1 week. Uwauma was left with no one. The house was quiet, her mother's wrapper still hanging by the window, her father's gourd resting by the wall. Everything remained except the people who made the house feel like home. She sat outside for hours, knees to her chest, head against the mud wall. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She didn't beg for help. Nobody came. The lady every man once admired was now alone, and fate, without saying a word, quietly turned the next page of her story. Days passed after the burial of her parents, and Uwauma was taken to live with her uncle. Her uncle was a very wicked man, and he was the one behind the death of Uwauma's father. She didn't cry anymore. Her tears had dried the moment she saw her mother's blood on the ground and her father's lifeless hands still reaching toward her. She thought the worst had passed. The uncle was happy. He had fulfilled what he had in mind. His plan was to be sleeping with Uwauma any time he wished to do so. Her uncle's compound looked like any other mud walls, thatched roof, and red earth, stained from years of rain and sorrow. But what lived inside was not a home, it was a prison wrapped in family blood. Her uncle had one wife and 3 children. 2 were teenage boys who looked at Uwauma with cold eyes. The 3rd was a girl of her age, Obiageli, once sweet as a child, but now filled with bitterness that tasted like her mother's words. Uwauma wasn't treated as family. She was the house girl, the stranger, the cursed one. From the moment the rooster crowed to the time the crickets sang at night, Uwauma was never still. She swept the compound. She fetched water from the far stream. She washed the clothes of children who mocked her with their mouths full. Her hands cracked from cold mornings, her feet blistered from hot afternoons. But she never complained. A girl with dead parents should be grateful she is not on the street. Her uncle's wife would hiss each time Uwauma stumbled from hunger. They fed her scraps, sometimes burnt rice, sometimes nothing. They gave her tattered clothes to wear, and when the villagers came by, they pretended she wasn't there. Obiageli, the first daughter, used to be kind, but jealousy is a wicked wind. Though she was pretty, her beauty was dim beside Uwauma's glowing face, one that still managed to shine even in poverty. And Uwauma? She said nothing. She just smiled when her body was crying. She just bowed when her back was breaking. And slowly, her glow began to fade. Her eyes sank, her cheeks hollowed, her bones pressed against her skin. But even then, she moved with grace. One day, one of the uncle's son spat on Uwauma's face. She tried to confront the young boy. She slapped him and warned him never to do such thing again. The uncle's son went and reported to his mother, and the mother ended up pouring hot water on Uwauma's feet. She cried and felt so much pain, but no one cared for her. Days passed and the wound healed. Then, one day, the town crier beat his drum and announced in the village square, "The prince shall choose a wife in 3 moons. All maidens must present themselves for the royal dance. He shall pick the one whose spirit calls his own." Women screamed with excitement. Girls ran to the mirror, families prepared. But in her uncle's house, they laughed. "You?" Obiageli sneered, arms crossed. "You think a prince will pick you with your torn wrapper and firewood scent?" Her uncle's wife nodded in disgust. "Unless the prince is blind and stupid." That night, Uwauma stayed inside her hut and wept. She didn't weep because she wanted the prince. She wept because no one saw her worth, not even as a human being. All she wanted was to be treated like a daughter, to eat, to breathe and to rest. The sun had not yet fully risen when the village of Umunna stirred to life. Birds scattered across the thatch-caked rooftops. Drummers began testing their skins with soft, rhythmic beats, and women with headscarves hurried along the red earth paths, dust rising beneath their feet. The long-awaited royal ceremony was finally here. The prince would choose a wife today, and every maiden in the land had dreamed of this moment. The palace grounds had been beautifully decorated. Palm fronds hung in wide arches, and vibrant African fabrics waved in the morning breeze like proud flags of identity. The chiefs arrived in long, flowing agbadas, beads clinking around their necks. The king sat on his throne, his face unmoved but watching. The prince, tall, striking, dressed in pure white, with lion-tooth beads across his chest, stood beside him, his expression unreadable. Back in a corner of the crowd, Uwauma stood silently. She wore a simple wrapper, faded yellow with brown edges. Her face was pale from hunger, her cheeks sunken from years of hard labor. Her arms bore faint scars of hot water splashes, of broomstick whips, and the endless beatings from her uncle's wife. Her bones had grown thin, but her soul was still alive. Barefoot, her toes gripped the dry earth-like roots, a reminder that even if the wind pushed her, she would not fall. No one noticed her. She had not come to be seen. The girls of the land began their dances one after the other. The first daughter of Uwauma's uncle stepped out, proud and confident. Her waist beads jiggled to the rhythm of the talking drums. She was good. She smiled. The crowd clapped. The drummers called the next, and the next, and the next. Laughter rose, praise chants echoed, and it felt like the entire village had gathered under one sky to witness the unfolding of destiny. Then the lead announcer raised a carved staff and shouted, "Let the next maiden come forward." For a moment, no one stepped out. "Who's next?" murmurs began. Then, to everyone's shock, Uwauma stepped forward. There was silence. A hush washed over the crowd like a strong wind. Even the drummers paused. Was this a joke? The girl that lived with Mazi Okori? The one always fetching firewood with bruises on her back? The one whose clothes hung like rags on her frame? But Uwauma didn't flinch. She walked forward slowly. Her eyes were tired, but they burned with something deeper, a spirit untouched by hardship. As she stood in the middle, the drums began again. Slowly at first, unsure, then louder, faster. Then something unbelievable happened. A woman stepped out from the crowd, old but graceful, clad in pure white. Her eyes glowing, her movements light, yet powerful. It was Uwauma's mother, dead to the world for years, buried, forgotten. But here she was, her spirit present, no longer bound by pain, but moving with divine purpose. She circled Uwauma, not touching, just guiding. Only Uwauma could see her clearly. The drums obeyed her feet. The wind bowed to her rhythm. The trees leaned in closer, and Uwauma danced. Her waist moved like water. Her hands painted stories in the air. Her eyes shut tight held tears, but her soul danced freely for the first time in years. The crowd gasped. People stood on benches to get a clearer view. Children pulled on their mothers' wrappers. The chief priest stopped chanting. Even the king leaned forward. The prince stood up from his throne. He didn't wait. He walked past the maidens, past the elders, past the rules of tradition, and came to her. He stretched out his hand and raised Uwauma's hand before the crowd. His voice rang out boldly, "This is my wife." A wave of shock swept the arena. Women gasped. Men blinked in disbelief. Her uncle's wife nearly dropped to the floor. The prince had chosen a girl who looked like a ghost, who danced like fire. Tears rolled down Uaoma's cheek. Her mother smiled and vanished. And in that moment, as the drums still roared and the people stared, Uaoma's eyes rolled and she collapsed to the ground. Flat, motionless. The drums stopped and no one, not even the prince, could understand what had just happened. Subscribe to our channel now if you haven't, so you won't miss out on part 2.